All right, let's go ahead and jump to our next example. Go ahead and go to your persons module directory, and in the steps folder, we're going to take a look at 6. Up until this point, we've been working with authenticated users, which means they have a user account. But sometimes we'll want to store user data for users that don't have an account. So we don't know who they are, but we might want to be able to save certain information in order to make the experience of navigating the site useful. For example, an anonymous user might still want an available display of recent searches that they've made. So there's 2 ways that we can go about this. The first is by using cookies, and the second is by using sessions. So let's go ahead and take a look at the cookie option. The benefit of using cookies is that they will persist throughout multiple sessions. So even if the user closes their browser and opens it back up again, the cookie remains in the browser, and so that user can have a seamless experience. Whereas if we were using sessions, as soon as that user closes their browser, the session variables are gone. So the next time that they come to the site, they won't have those variables to work with. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the cookies example. I'm going to open up step 6, go ahead and copy the entire code, and paste it over your persons.module file. Using cookies takes 3 parts. The first part is including our jQuery.cookie.js file, which is part of Drupal core, and that includes some utility functions for working with cookies. Next, we need to set our cookie, which we can do with a Drupal function in PHP. And finally, we need to do something with that cookie, which we need to do in a JavaScript file. Let's go ahead and look at the first part. We've defined a function called personsinit, and this is an implementation of hookinit, which will run on every page load. And we're grabbing our jQuery.cookie.js file using Drupal add.js, which will allow us to add a file, and it will take care of adding it to the headers of the HTML page. This file is in the mist directory, which is where most of our core JavaScript files are. And we're giving it a weight of -2 so that it's above our other JavaScript files. The reason for this is that we want to make sure that those functions that are in cookie.js are available to us. Now, typically, when we're adding a JavaScript file on every page load, we'll want to add that to our info file instead of using hookinit. But because we're adding a file that's included in a different part of Drupal, we're using hookinit here. And then finally, we're calling Drupal setMessage to display a message that includes some HTML code that we can use to replace out with some data. So what we're going to do is save the last search that the user has made into a cookie, and then we'll use JavaScript to replace out this HTML here, specifically this span that's inside of the enclosing span that has a class of search history, and we're going to replace that out with the last search that was made. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the second part, which is setting the cookie. In a previous example, we added a submit function handler to the search form so that it would run every time that the search was made and add that value to the user object. So what we want to do in this case is add some code to that submit function that creates the cookie. So we're going to scroll up looking for that submit function. Okay, here we got it right here. Persons, save, search, submit. Now if we scroll down, we'll see some new code added here. And we're starting it out with a check to see if the user is anonymous. And we can use the user is anonymous function for this. And if they are, then what we're going to do is run user cookie save. And user cookie save is a very simple function that just takes an array of key value pairs, the key being the key, and the value just being the value of that key, and saves it as a cookie. So we're passing it an array, and the key is recent search, and the value is a link, and the link just takes the submitted text that was searched for as the text for the link, and then we're adding that text to the end of the path search/node here to create the full path. And that's all we're doing. We're just running user cookie save. And then because this is an anonymous user, we don't need to run any of the additional code, so we're just going ahead and returning from that. Okay, the third part is using this cookie for some purpose, and we need a JavaScript file in order to do that. Let's go ahead and jump back to our module directory, and you'll see that we have a persons.js file, and we want to go ahead and open that up in our editor. Now there's a lot of new material here, so I'll try to keep the description of what we're doing concise to the code that's specific to what we're doing. Most of this is just a structure that's going to be included with all JavaScript files, and we'll cover all of this in a future video. The basic part that we want to take a look at is here inside this attach bit. And what we're doing is establishing a function, and we're just grabbing that specific object that we added in our Drupal set message that had a class of search history, and we're using a jQuery selector in order to select this, and that's with a dot. And then we're running through just one time, we're grabbing the span that's inside of this, and we're running a function on it. And so the this here is the span that we want to replace out. And what we're going to do is run a replace with, which will take whatever HTML we supply and replace the existing HTML. And then we're grabbing the cookie, and we do that by using the $.cookie variable here. And then we pass it the name of our cookie. Whenever we use user cookie save, it adds our variables to a parent variable called Drupal.visitor. So when we reference it inside of this cookie variable, it needs to reference it as Drupal.visitor. And then the key of the variable that we want to pull in. Now that we have our JavaScript file, we need to make sure that it gets included on every page. And we can do that by adding it to the scripts variable inside of our info file. So let's go ahead and jump to our module directory and open up the .info file. Here you'll see one line that you haven't seen before in the previous videos, which is a array type style, and it's called scripts. And we're adding the persons.js file, just like we added the persons.module file to the files array here. So pretty straightforward. This will add the JavaScript to every page load. Let's go ahead and go back to our browser and clear our caches to make sure that everything gets flushed out and reloaded properly. Okay, now we want to log out because we're going to be, this is only functional as an anonymous user. And we see our text up here you recently searched for, and it's blank because as an anonymous user we haven't yet searched for anything. So let's go ahead and search for something. All right, now we see up top we have our search for something link that's being pulled from a cookie and replacing out some HTML that's inside of our Drupal set message function. We see a couple versions of it because the hook init function runs more than one time during the page load. So this is not necessarily where you'd want to put a Drupal set message, but for example purposes, this works.